Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. Today I am joined by the lovely Michelle Rule, a self-made multimillionaire, business owner and wealth coach who's on a mission to help women take charge of their financial future. Welcome, Michelle. I've been so excited to actually have this conversation. I've been following you on socials for the last 12 months and what you do looks epic, not only just for your empowerment for women to really kind of give them their confidence around money and wealth, but the bouginess and the way you've gone around it, I love. So we'll go into that. But let's just start with your story. So you built a 7 million plus asset base, starting with no financial head start. What was the shift that moved you from survival to strategic wealth building?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Jo. Honestly, this conversation today, and hopefully someone's listening and might relate to something in this story. But even as you introduce me, self-made multimillionaire, it feels a bit out of body for that to be the title. But the reason that I had decided when I turned 40, that I'm 42 now, I turned 40 and I realised it was my time to speak about this, because wealth for me was never something I thought was a first and foremost value of mine. It's not something that I ever, as a young person, aspired for. But somewhere along the line, I realized that it was something that was going to allow me to live a life that felt in alignment for me. And so, yeah, the journey began. So I guess I can roll back a little bit, just rewind a bit. So, grew up here in Perth. My parents are both teachers. We were taught to work hard, get a good education. I went straight to uni. I studied PR and marketing, got my degree, went straight out into the workforce. I was, young, energetic, ready to go, and worked in ad agencies, worked my way up to account manager role, one of the youngest account managers at a top agency here in Perth. And I was loving life, earning a high income, and I was actually secretly getting in more and more credit card debt. So I found myself as about a 24 or 5-year-old with about 15K of credit card debt. I had my 15K HEX debt I hadn't touched, and I had adrenal fatigue. So I was completely physically and emotionally burnt out, and just the harder I ran, the more and more money seemed to slip away from me. So in a way, I felt like I had failed, but I realized that was a chance for me to step back and get some alignment in my life. So I actually, with the support of my then boyfriend, now husband, we've been together 20 years. So he was there right at the beginning, and he said, look, take a break, take some time to find out what you want to do. I actually retrained to be a primary school teacher. So I did that for a while, and still money wasn't something that I aspired to. I lived a very simple life. I was going through what I would call like a spiritual awakening. I was learning Reiki healing, pranic healing. I was doing a lot of meditation, a lot of deep searching, and I found so much peace and happiness. I still had not embraced money. I had decided that I didn't want things, and even as a young child, I was very flashy. I loved the dress-ups and loved that, but I started to strip that away from my personality and started to try to live a very small life so that I didn't have to deal with money. Then comes my son. So my husband and I got married. We actually started an IT company together. We've been doing that for 14 years alongside each other. So building a business has been great, but it was really the birth of my son that started everything. So he's 10 years old now. So a decade ago, I found myself with that little tiny baby, and I know you're a mum, so you can relate. When you have a child, everything changes. You look at life not so much as, am I going to be okay? But you look at life as, what can I provide for this small human who I'm now responsible for? I brought into this world. The world seemed a little tough at times, and I wanted to protect him, and I also wanted to show him that you can have whatever you want and you can be whatever you want. But there was that part of me that actually felt a bit hypocritical in that point, because if I was completely honest, I had toned down my life and settled in a way that I wasn't living fully expressed, because I gave a shot at life and money and all of the things that I loved, and I felt like I'd failed and drawn back to a smaller life. So it was him. We can thank him. He was the beginning of my investing journey. Yes, we spoke to, so my husband and I spoke, in depth about what we wanted for our future, where we wanted to live, where we wanted to send the kids to school. And I decided I didn't want a small life for him. So we started investing. Yeah.
Children are given to us for all sorts of lessons as well. But I really, I do resonate with that. And I think that children in particular make you just view the world through a different lens. And you don't want them to show up necessarily like you've shown up, because you want the absolute best for them. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where it began. Shall we fast forward a little bit from there? What happened next? Mm-hmm. So we at that point we had at the IT company, we were making some profits, some income. It was still very much in the early stages of business, very, uncertain. So we had some cash coming in. We had zero assets really to our name. We were living in a home with a tiny bit of equity, and we thought, what are we going to do here? So that is when we took a leap and we decided to seek some advice, and we got some help to purchase some investment properties, got one, then two. At that time, everyone told us we were absolutely crazy. What are you doing? Barely making ends meet. Can you afford these properties? The property market's going to collapse, all these stories that we're hearing. And I just blocked it out, and I said, I've run the numbers. And at that point I was at home a lot more, and still working with the company a lot from home, doing all the cash flow reports and very much in the numbers, as I still am. And I started creating what I call my net wealth spreadsheet, and I mapped it out. I said, well, if I buy these properties and this is the rate that they grow, what's that going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now? The data was there, and it made sense to me that this would work. And if I could manage the cash flow to service these properties, then I would be all good. So as much as everyone was and once again, this is your environment, they do it out of love because they want to protect you, because you're doing something that's different from what they did. And they don't want you to get into danger, right? So I didn't grow up necessarily around a lot of friends or family investing. So we were very much going against the grain. But now, 10 years in, of course, the 7 million asset base, we've got 5 investment properties now. We've got the multi-million-dollar IT company. I started out with a multi-six-figure mentorship company. And I see very much an expansive view on life. So I would say, just because you potentially don't have support in the beginning, it's super important to listen to that intuition, and if you've got good advisors around you, to really have a crack.
And block out the noise. Everyone's got an opinion. And I think that those who haven't gone down that journey, they do find it hard to have that vision and understand why you would take that route. But if you're in your comfort zone all the time, then you're not really going to go anywhere, are you?
That's it.
So I love that. You talk a lot about the mindset side of wealth. Tell us what thinking like the wealthy actually looks like.
Yes. Mindset really governs the way that we act, and it's our actions that create the life that we have. So we can't ignore mindset, and I spoke a little bit about my history in energy healing, and I had done some deep work around that. But then to actually come at this, with my newborn, realizing I hadn't healed my relationship with money. I had healed my relationship with a lot of things and who I was as a soul here, having this physical experience, but I hadn't looked at money that way. So I think the money mindset is a massive piece of this. And somewhere along the line, I had picked up the idea that I saw my parents working incredibly hard, and, both teachers. My dad he's an incredible scientist. He taught science. He writes chemistry books. He still does. He was tutoring, most days after school for that, extra income to provide for the 3 children and all of that. So I saw, very hardworking parents, making ends meet. And I do believe it was a completely different set of opportunities that they had in their generation. And even if I look to my grandparents' generation, my nonna came from Italy, escaping the war after my pop was a prisoner of war. So when we look at the lack mindset and the real challenges that they had just to put food on the table, into my parents' generation, realizing we need safety and security. But now in our generation, it's a different game. And so I was ready to look at this as it wasn't wrong the way that I had seen money and seen the world, but I was sitting on the potential that I got to rewrite the way that I wanted to treat money, and not necessarily look to the wealthy as greedy, Maybe they just know something that I don't know yet. And potentially, if I can learn the rules of the wealth game, then I can have a better future for my kids. So the wealthy do look at money differently. And I can tell you that now because that's essentially where we're sitting. As out of body as that sounds, it's like, how did that get to be my life? But the way that I look at money now is completely different to the way that I looked at money back in my early 20s.
And you've broken that mold now. You've broken that pattern for your children. They can now see money and think about money differently.
Absolutely.
So you're setting them up for success in that area.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if you say about thinking like the wealthy, in your daily life, can you give us an example of something
Yes.
that, you know, if one of the listeners is listening and you want to go like think like wealthy, give an example.
Okay, I love this. So I would say the wealthy have an expansive viewpoint on life. We are seeking opportunity, and we see opportunity everywhere. We sure risk mitigation, but we're willing to take calculated risks because we know that if we just take the status quo, we're going to get what the status quo gets, that's fine if you want to be on that hamster wheel. You know, if you love it, keep doing it. Like if you love your pay as you go, you're an employee and you love that, and just keep going. We don't even need to be a business owner to build wealth. Absolutely not. I've got plenty of clients who are not business owners and are able to funnel their income into assets. So I think it's an expansive view. It's a realization that there is opportunity everywhere and looking at how to leverage. So it's okay, what skills do I have that could be leveraged to create value for other people that could bring money into my life? So first and foremost, you need to want it, because if you're not honest with yourself and you say, I don't really want money, I don't really care about money. It's like, I used to say that, but let's be honest, money is one of the most powerful energy sources we have here on this planet that we get to exchange so that we can create a life that feels good, so that you can live in the areas you want, hire help within the home, so you can be with your children and all of these things. So we have to be honest that it does make life, it gives you the ability to create a life that feels good. It's not just what it looks like, right? It's all about how your life feels.
People think of pretentiousness. I don't want to be pretentious. And it's not, is it? It's about living the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
And if it is to be a bit more frugal, then fine. But we know that money makes the world go around. Like, you can't do a lot if you don't have money in this world. And my goodness, it's getting more expensive.
Yeah.
But just the things like to be able to spend more time with your children.
Absolutely.
Those little things that people kind of go, oh, okay, that's not the flashy that I'm looking at, but that is actually something that's needed.
It's so, so important in those early days, yes, to really align it with your value set. It's one of the first things that I would speak to women or anyone who wants to build wealth is we need to build it alongside your value set. So for me, it was my children and wanting something for them, wanting more freedom over my life and sovereignty over my life. Whatever it is for you, it's like if we can align seeing that more money will help you live that life, then you'll have more of that internal guidance to just seek it out and find a way to make it work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Your financial freedom calculator, that's something that you use with your clients. Can you walk us through the concept of a financial freedom number and why that is important to have that kind of financial freedom number to work towards?
Yeah, so the financial freedom number, it was a concept I came across when my son was born. It was presented to me as an idea. I had never really even thought about assets, to be honest, other than paying off my mortgage and saving some super. To me, it wasn't really ever a conversation. It was more, we just need to save enough super so that when we retire, we can take that big lump sum of cash, we can slowly draw down on it to the point where, if we need to go to a retirement home, we would then sell the home, go to the retirement home, and then that's that. And I know it sounds so morbid, nobody wants to think about end of life. It's like, it is, but we unfortunately, prior to my son's birth, we had lost quite a few of Cam's family members, his mum, his dad, and both of his brothers in the space of 5 years. Wow. It was just a horrendous period of, cancer, Alzheimer's, and what can you do? But what that showed me was how life can be taken, but also how little can be left at the end of that if you don't actually want to leave with nothing for your family or your children. It's like we actually need to plan a different way. So the financial freedom concept is, okay, I'm not actually going to plan to leave with nothing. I'm actually going to plan to leave with an asset base. So I'm going to build up an asset base that is going to grow at a certain percentage every year. And that asset base alone, just in the growth, is going to sustain my life. So that when I do pass, because we all will, that asset base is still intact and that gets passed on as generational wealth to my kids. We teach them about investing. They get to then grow upon that and then hand that down and so on. So essentially you escape this whole money matrix where we are no longer forced into trading time for money. It's where our assets are the things that grow. And, as an investor now 10 years in with the 5 properties, I see firsthand assets, they do the heavy lifting. They are building your wealth while you're sleeping, whether you're out and about. It feels like magic money. And I want everyone to have this. I don't think it's fair that just, because I stumbled across this, that I keep that to myself. It is available for absolutely anyone who's brave enough to have a go. So the concept is, if we can get an asset base that the growth alone is enough to sustain your life, then you're free. Because the growth alone, it's 20, there's a calculator for it, but essentially it's 20 times what you would like to spend per year. So that if I drew down 5% from my asset base every year, that would be, I could sustain my life, do what I like. It's not exactly how we do the retirement strategy, but it's a beautiful mindset shift to realize what number you are looking at building. Because some people will be going to a $1 million asset base, other people will be going to a 10 million asset base, other people might be shooting for 100 million. Like, everyone's different. There's no right or wrong. But once you've got a number, well, now you know how to start. How many properties do I need? Like, how am I going to structure this to reach that number? So you've got some type of a goalpost.
That's it. Reverse engineer what it is that you want, and then how we can do something about that today. And I think there's so many people that just wait until they're retired and go, oh my gosh, superannuation is not enough.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's a lot of what we look at the HMO Property Core is just building that financial wealth so that when you hit retirement, you've got the money coming in where you don't even have to look for it. And I do think it is quite sad that there's a lot of people getting to their retirement and now they're thinking, oh my gosh, I actually thought super would see me through. And it isn't. It's a time of life that you want to be going on holiday. Like, you don't want to be like being frugal. Like, you actually want to go and enjoy life because you haven't got work anymore. That's absolutely awesome. Going back to, so we spoke a little bit about this offline, but about the masculine and feminine. And do you feel that some of the women who lack in confidence around money feel that it might be more of a masculine trait? And is there some jarring with that and having to kind of coach women into being in their feminine and knowing that they can still get to that financial wealth probably better in their feminine than they can if they're trying to do it in their masculine?
I love this. Yeah, so back to the energetics behind it all, the masculine, the feminine energy. And, I believe that as women, we are natural nurturers. We are the creators of life. We are the creative energy. We actually have a beautiful ability to envisage what our future could look like. We are the queen energy, right? So we as the queens will then see what it is that we could create for our family, for, I speak to women and they're like, I have these ideas about, living here or holidays here. And men can have this too. I'm not saying that they don't, but we naturally have that vision. And so if we can take that alongside the masculine energy is the provider energy. They want to know what to do. They're actually like, what do I do? Tell me what to do and I'll get it.
How can I fix this?
How can I fix it? Like, just let me fix. And this is where sometimes I see the breakdown between the husband and wife energy, and it's not always the same, but potentially, as the visionary, the women will go home and say, hey babe, like, I can see all these things we can create and I want to do all these, exciting things with our life. And do you know what your husband hears? What's that going to cost me? That sounds expensive, right? Can we just lower the bar a bit? But listen, this is where I actually am obsessed with working with women, taking back some knowledge and understanding of how wealth is built, because they can then not only go with the vision, but also start to have the discussion alongside your husband about what the map is going to look like. I am a numbers person. I have a lot of masculine energy in me too. And I love to see a strategy. Like, show me a spreadsheet. Show me how we're going to get from A to B. Like, what levers are we going to pull? Like, how many properties do I need? What does the cash flow look like? Like, I like those numbers. We don't all need to have that aspect, but someone needs to have that aspect. But once we have the strategy so we can see how it's done, then we can be free to be in our creative energy about really birthing that. And I promise you, like I have this conversation with my husband a lot. You know, we work alongside each other, but we talk a lot about what we see for the future. And he loves that I have these visions of what we can create. We say this often, and I believe me on my own would not have created this. And he believes he on his own would not have created what we've created. So it's actually this bouncing back of energy between the two of us about what it is we want, how we're going to get there, and also how to use each of our individual energies to get there. So it's that supportive of that king queen energy. It's not a competition. It's a let's use my skills, let's use your skills, and what can we build together?
Yeah. And I love that because we had this chat earlier. We're in that similar position working alongside our husbands. And, you know, we've got some mentors, Brett and Marie, that do a lot around relationship and masculine and feminine. Awesome couple. And they really talk about two is more powerful than one.
Yes.
You know, putting both of those energies together, using the you know, what we're naturally capable of doing and what they're naturally, and bringing that together is actually way more powerful.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, there'll be a lot of single women. Do you have a lot of single women who come, or I'm just wondering from that perspective?
I do. And yes and no. Like I see women like all over, and I don't think it needs to be either or.
It doesn't have to be your husband, right?
I absolutely
it's understanding the energy
yes.
of both, the kind of almost the strategic and the kind of...
Yeah. And even as a young person, you know, and I have a masculine energy and the feminine energy within as well. So that is absolutely not to say, and sometimes I hesitate to talk about the king queen energy because it's not to say that you can't do that solo. Absolutely. Like the power of single women, absolutely there, and single men, absolutely there. But it's also good to know that we can be a mixture of all, and we can do that side by side or solo, but it's whatever is right for you. That is where we need to be, because if we have you in alignment, feeling really lit up by what you're building, it'll be built. It has to come from within.
And that's it. And I think, because obviously we don't want to discard the masculine and feminine just being your husband and wife.
Yes.
But knowing that as a queen or as the king, like
yes.
you've got all those powers within you. But, you know, you don't always have to do it alone either. And I think that's sometimes what can push, and I don't want this getting into a relationship podcast, but I think it can push people away from finding someone else because they're like, no, I've got it. I can do this. And yeah, we can do it. But when you can do it together, there's an African proverb that I absolutely love that I talk about quite a lot about if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think there's a lot. It's like my whole vibe of the year. This is like my saying of the year. But I feel like there's a lot in that, whether it's through, you know, partnerships, whether it's through masculine and feminine. You know, you don't have to be on your own doing these things, but know that you've got it within you to be able to do.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's just a season, right? So, and I was thinking back to a friend of mine who is single, and in her season, she uses the king energy as this like universal energy. She's like, right, I need your support. This is what I need from you. And it just flows in. And I'm like, how did you do that? Because we can still play off those energies, right? So I think, whatever season you're in, it's just honoring that and knowing that we get to ebb and flow and change.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
So good. So you've built your brand around empowering women financially. So this has been the brand that you've created over the last probably 12 to 18 months or so, nearly probably 2 years. What keeps you going on that mission?
I love it. And it is a mission. It was given to me. And I speak a lot spiritually, and that's fine. You're either going to get it or not. But I do spend a lot of time introspectively thinking about my life, about what I'm here to do. And I got to the point within my company alongside my husband. I'm still there. I'm in there at least on a Wednesday. The tech team tried to take over my desk when I didn't show up for a few weeks, but I'm still there running a lot of all of the financial and the management meetings, finance meetings. And I'm obsessed with our team there. But essentially, I'd got to a point where my energy, my creative energy, and this is where I talk about this feminine energy, it was just bubbling up. My youngest child had just started kindy, so I now had extra hours with no children. And, you know, I'm still at school drops, school pickup and all of that. But what am I doing? I was bursting with energy. And I'm like, okay, right, we're starting a podcast. We're going to do all this marketing. And it kept getting met with resistance because the IT company is absolutely thriving. We're so blessed. Downtime Assassin, so blessed to have that company. And it didn't warrant what I wanted to do. It didn't need it right then. And I'm thinking this energy has to go somewhere. So I started networking and meeting other women in business. And at that point, we started talking about investing and what I'd built and realizing some were like, well, can you show me how? Can you help me? And I'm like, of course I can help you. So from there, I realized, oh, there's something else here. So I believe it was just right place, right time given to me. I was excited to teach. I was excited to somehow use my life to better other people's lives. Felt really important at this time in my life because, I'm 42. It is what it is. I don't want all of this just to be gone with me. So if I can make an impact, I know how hard it was in my 20s trying to make this money work. And if I had known then what I know now, potentially I could have saved myself from a bit of pain. So it really came from this just creative energy where I wanted to use what I had learned, what I'd created in my life, and how can I get the message out there. So it really just started as, can I get on a podcast? Can I speak on stage? How do I get the message out there? And then it ended up being, the mastermind, all the other clients that I work with just organically out of that. And we're having fun.
Oh, well, I was just about to say, and you look like you're having so much fun on that journey.
Yes.
So I've looked at a few posts where you've got your workshops and masterminds in the suites at the Crown.
Yeah.
I know you've just signed up to do one of them on like a super yacht.
Yeah.
I just see on some of your socials, I'm like, whoa, she's having a great time whilst doing this. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? You've set yourself up through your asset base, through the IT company. You now have got a mission or a spark within you. You don't want that, you don't just want to sit around and go and get your nails done 24/7. You actually wanted to do something, but also have fun in the process, which I think is really important to...
Honestly, the irony is that is exactly what I'm teaching the financial freedom is, I thought getting to my financial freedom number, which for me was a 5 million asset base, that was the goal. Once we hit it, I was like watching Netflix all day, living my best life. And I got there and the financial freedom was actually just the energetic minimum, is to be out of survival mode where I actually get to choose if I want to come to work or which job I want to take or which clients I want to take. That should be a basic human minimum, that we are born with that level of freedom. So that is what I realized. That's not the end. Financial freedom isn't the end of my story. That actually gets to be the beginning of a brand new chapter about what can I now do to fast track that for other humans.
And I like the areas that you're doing it in. So you're kind of almost showing women, this is what is possible. This is a life that I'm living and therefore you can live. And I think showing that through demonstrating by doing your workshops at these gorgeous places, that really takes it up a level, because women are like, I want to do this again. I want to do this. I want to bring my family here. So I think that's a really good strategy that you've done.
Well, and even in that, it's funny how those ideas were even born is through my real life leveling up. Because if you've gone from no money or in debt and somewhere along the journey accumulated 7 million asset, that didn't happen accidentally or overnight and without me doing the work required to change and really evolve who I was as a person. So there was a point where I wouldn't have even felt worthy of staying at Crown. We ended up staying there on our after our wedding, before we went on a honeymoon, which was gifted to us by our parents at the time because we had no money for anything like that. So, and edging my way into it and then saying, okay, now I'm going to stay here and then I'm going to stay in the apartment and then I'm going to bring my kids. And the next year it was like, can we do the penthouse? And the next year it's like, can we do the crystal villa? It's like always just edging myself and realizing what was changing within me and my magnetism to money by putting myself in these environments.
Yeah.
So, it is a big part of my story. That bougie life is me being able to express myself, but also showing women that money doesn't flow to you on a one speed. There is not just one automatic speed that money will flow to you. And there is a way to actually speed up that money magnetism.
And it doesn't speed up or actually progress with a lack mindset. If you surrounded yourself with those things, the lack kind of goes is the one.
You start to realize it's a you thing, that you think there's lack. And we as Australians, honestly, we live in this we're proud of our struggle and our survival. And that was me for a long time. Yeah, look how hard I work. Look at the degrees I got. I've earned this. Yeah, okay. You've got to actually drop it because there are trillions of dollars floating around this planet and people are collecting and flowing money every single day. The reason it hasn't come to you is because there's something still in you. We need to either learn the skills or the energy behind how that can come to you. And so really once I realized, it is not a lack planet. It is not a lack country. It is a me thing. And it's hard to say, but that is what you realize by being around those environments. Okay, people have figured this out. How can I figure that out too? And I'm ready to learn new. Yeah.
So that brings me on to one of my final questions, and then we'll go on to a little bit about what your workshops are and how people could look into them and what your offerings are. What do you think is the biggest myth about wealth that stops people from taking the first step?
Well, I can speak from my experience, I would say, is when I was younger, I believed that I needed to earn more money before I could start. I've already taught my 10-year-old and my 5-year-old is starting to pick it up. You don't need to earn more money to start. It starts like literally today. If you haven't already started investing or looking at your overall net wealth map and you think $20, $50 is not going to make any, it does make a difference because it's about the system and the flow. So you have to just start. Don't wait for the more income. So I would say that was one big part. The other part, potentially naively as, a 20-year-old, why I never started and thought, well, what's the point? Or I've failed at 25 and I'll just give up. It's like, you're 25, are you serious? Like, how many years are you going to live? I know, to be 25. So is that we think it's going to take this tremendous amount of time. And I work with women every day where we actually get to collapse time. It's not the time. It is who we need to become in order to do that. So yes, the sooner that we can start and realize that yes, there's a strategy behind it and we start to build that asset base, and then we look at, okay, you and the identity and the value that you offer. How can we have that money flow in greater and greater amounts doing what you love? And it's possible. So I would say, they're probably two big shifts.
Yeah. And one thing that just sparked something in me there, we've heard a lot from, it could be family members and close friends that I'm just too old now. Yeah. And I feel like it's never too old to start. And I've got to share something with you that I've now gone back to my father-in-law was like, keeps going on, get Freddie to play the piano. I'd love it if I could have played the piano. So we actually sent him a keyboard last week for his birthday and was like, you're not too, because he's like, I'm too old now. You're not too old. But the thing that I'm going to start benchmarking it on, we've actually got a client, an incredible client who's 80, who has been watching my husband on socials on his health journey. And he signed up to my husband's health coach because he wants to see if he can get abs at 80. Yeah. Like, I love that.
Yes.
Because you're never too old.
Honestly, I'm not.
So I think that's the biggest message, guys. If you are listening, you're never too old and it's never too late to start. I think that's a key.
Absolutely.
But let's talk a bit about if people want to look you up, get on your journey. Can you give a bit of insight as to like what your offerings are and where they can find you?
Oh, sure. Okay, so Michelle Rule Millionaire Maker. That's my Instagram page. Name. Look, if you're going to come out with the bangs. There I am. You'll find me on Instagram. That's my central hub. Have a website there, but honestly, I've got a whole bunch of freebies. Just come on in, link in bio, financial freedom calculator. I think there's a code word freedom. Type it in there and you can get yours. I work with women in a Millionaires Are Made mastermind. So I have a mastermind of incredible women who are talking business, investing, and just the expansion mindset. We do a lot of energy work in that space too, because I can't do strategy without energetics. To me, it flows together. So they're the main ways, but honestly, just thank you so much for allowing me to get the message out there, and whatever little piece from today, if you're hearing it and you think, well, how can I? Well, I've gone from debt to multi-millions in a fairly short amount of time, and I believe it. If you hear it and there's a desire within you, oh, that sounds like something I want, then yes, it's for you. It is for you. That is your intuition calling you forward. Like, today's the day. So get in touch, with Joe and just start. Just start. It's the best ride ever.
And you've also built a community with what you're doing. So if anything, you're going to come out there with a wealth of knowledge, a different energy shift and mindset, and probably some great gals that you can hook up with for coffees and wines and whatever, which would be awesome.
It has to be a vibe.
Thanks so much, Michelle. It's been awesome having you on.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.